Hey YouTube, it's Adam from I'm a Music Mogul, and welcome to another remake video. Today we'll be making Rae Sremmurd's track Powerglide featuring Juicy J, so let's get straight to it. First things first, let's set our tempo to 174 beats per minute. We're going to start off with the main strings that we hear throughout the entire track. I'm going to bring in some Logic strings, studio strings. Actually, let's go to orchestral strings and go to studio strings here. Alright, so let's start drawing out that first pattern. Alright, so let's go ahead and duplicate this region over 3 times. So it's 4 total of 8 bars long. And let's get to the next part because it changes up in pattern. Oh. Alright, so there's the pattern right there. Let's move this over 8 bars, just like that. And now we have the entire pattern. Alright, that sounds good just like that. Next, let's start adjusting the sound a little bit. And so the first thing I'm going to do here is just push up some of the mids on the EQ. Push up maybe around the 200 hertz range. Get more of that mid-rangey going on in there. And we're going to cut out some of the highs. Alright, something like that is okay. Let's close that. Maybe we adjust the exciter over here. Pull up the harmonics a little bit. Maybe move the frequency. Alright, so it sounds good, something like that. Next, let's just take this bus off and just bring in our own reverb. Let's bring in Logic's Space Designer. And let's bring in a plate here, a large plate. Sure, bring big choir plate. Alright, so that sounds good just like that. Next, let's go ahead and create a new software instrument track. Let's go ahead and draw in that pattern that happens, or sorry, that pluck pattern that happens over top the strings. Let's bring in Logic's ES2 synthesizer. And we're just going to work off of the default settings over here. Let's draw in the pattern first and then do some sound design after. Alright, so let's duplicate that over the 8 bars. And then we're going to copy this pattern over and switch it up a little bit here. Alright, let's click this and copy it over the 8 bars. Alright, so let's go ahead and open up Logic's ES2 and manipulate this sound. So we're just going to be using one oscillator, and the one oscillator is going to be, if I can get this to 100%, will be a sine wave. We're going to turn on unison. Let's just bring down the volume here. Let's adjust the attack a little bit. I'm going to bring down the sustain all the way. Maybe pull down the release as well. Then I'm just going to bring in some reverb here. I'm going to bring in Logic Space Designer once again. And we'll just use the default settings that load up here. Let's just bring this down so it's not as wet. Alright, so there is that pattern right over there. Next, let's go ahead and create a new software instrument track. And let's bring in Logic's EXS24 sampler instrument and start adding in some drums. Alright, so let's go ahead and bring in the Powerglide drum kit, make it nice and loud. And let's draw in that hi-hat pattern. It's a very simple one. Just bring in Logic's brush tool and draw in eighth notes. All right, let's duplicate this 7 times. Whoa, that did not work. Duplicate this 7 times. Now for this hi-hat, I'm just going to EQ it a little bit, make it nice and bright. We just made that a little bit brighter, but let's just pull it down in the mix. All right, let's go ahead and duplicate this track, remove the channel EQ, and let's pull in the open hats. Let's just put a repeat. All right, let's duplicate that over 7 times. Make this a little louder. All right, that sounds good just like that. Next, let's go ahead and create a new software instrument track. And we're just going to go ahead and bring in the bass preset here. I'm going to go to bass, and actually the preset was called Agile Synth Bass. I'm going to go and bring that in. Now there was some tension in this track. I'm not quite sure if this was in it per se, but it definitely had some tension in it, and this is going to help us get that tension. Just a sustained note at B. And let's just drag this over the 16 bars. Let's open up the EQ, just filter out a lot of the high end. And let's filter out some of the low end to leave room for our 808 that we're going to bring in a moment. All right, something like that. Next, let's just get rid of that click that happens at the beginning of it. Pull up the attack. And it's just going to be in the background ever so subtly, just to give us that tension without it. With it. It just gives us that little bit of tension that's needed to kind of create this build up in this track. So that sounds good like that. Next, let's go back to our drum kit over here, duplicate that, and we're going to create that drum roll at the end of this 16 bars. All right, actually, I think this is only 2 bars long. So let's shrink that. All right, let's find the snare. All right, then we're going to switch this up to 30-second notes. We'll get a really fast snare hit there. All right, and in this song, this kind of went crazy from left to right. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in an effect right here. It can be found under Filter, and we're going to bring in Logic's Auto Filter. And I'm going to bring in the preset. What was it called here? Sweeping high pass. Here it is here. And that goes from sort of left to right channel as heard in the track. I'm just going to pull up the dry signal a little bit here. All right, so now we got our now that we got our snare roll over there, let's go ahead and duplicate this track. And I'm going to remove the auto filter. And let's go ahead and put in the Juicy J tag.
Yeah, ho! Yeah, ho! Yeah, ho! Yeah, ho!
All right, so there it is right there. And next, let's go ahead and just bring in a nice build up here. I'm just going to drag this. It's going off my screen. That's just a little rise up here that's going to happen before it hits the next section. But let's go ahead and lower that. That was super loud. Alright, so let's go ahead and just copy this over. We're going to copy over this. And all we really need to do now is just bring in some drums. So let's get to that. I'm going to duplicate this. All right, so let's go ahead and bring in the snare. It's a simple snare pattern. Just draw that in here. It's going to be 2 snares total. I'm going to duplicate that. Just going to find my other snare because there's going to be 2 snares layered. All right, so there's our 2 snares right over there. All right, next let's go ahead and duplicate this track. At the beginning of each 16 bars, there's this little effect hit. Let's go ahead and pull that in. It's really quiet though. All right, next let's go ahead and duplicate this track once again. And let's draw in the kick pattern. Make this louder. Alright, so this pattern simply repeats itself. Let's do 3 times. Except at the end there's one more kick. And let's duplicate this over the 16 bars. At the end of this pattern, we're going to drop off that last kick. Sorry guys, my computer is a little slow here. Alright, so that sounds good like that. Let's go back to here and let's draw in the 808s. I'm going to create a new software instrument track. I'm going to bring in Logic's ES2 synthesizer. I'm going to bring in the 808 preset. We're going to come back to sound design in a little bit. Let's just draw in that pattern. Actually, it's going to follow the kick, so let's pull this down here. So for the first 808 pattern, let's go ahead and just fix that up here. We're going to pull it down to a B. Let's copy this over. For the second pattern, we're going to go ahead and drop this down to a G. Except we're going to take out this last note over here. Alright, let's pull up Logic's ES2 synthesizer. And we're just going to go ahead and adjust this settings a little bit. Just going to pull down the analog a little bit here. Pull up some distortion. I'm going to pull off the cutoff here to make it a little bit darker sounding. Pull in some more sine level here. Let's go ahead and pull up the attack so it's not fighting with the kick. I'm just going to pull down the decay on our envelope 1. Alright, so that sounds good just like that. Let's go ahead and close that up. Okay, so let's copy over this whole entire section. We're going to pull it over once and then twice. For the snare, we're going to do a snare drop at the end of the second one over here. And let's push this over once again. Alright, so there's our quick arrangement right there. Next, I'm just going to show you a technique that they use in the track to kind of filter out the entire track as a whole. So after the snare pattern over here, we're going to do a nice EQ filter. So on our master track, we're going to go ahead and bring in an EQ. And we're just going to go ahead and filter out some of the lows and then do a nice filter sweep up to bring in all the frequencies. So I'm going to turn on touch over here as my automation type. And let's just pull back here. And I'm going to get ready to do this. Let's go. Alright, something like that. I just did it by hand. It's just a nice quick filter sweep. And that's just to show you how they did that in the track. So that's pretty much the arrangement of the song. All the pieces are there. So sit back, relax, and enjoy, and listen to the remake we just put together. Rae Sremmurds' Powerglide featuring Juicy J. So that's how you do. So that's how you make. So that is Powerglide by Rae Sremmurd featuring Juicy J, remade in Logic Pro X. For your Logic users out there, I'm going to go ahead and save this entire session for you guys. Place that as a downloadable link in the description box below this video. For your non-Logic users out there, got your back as well. I'm going to go ahead and export all these MIDI stems. I'm going to export audio stems as well and include the drum kit and samples you heard in this track. In this remake, you can go ahead and find the entire playback in the description box below this video. If you do have any questions or requests or just want to chat, let's talk in the comment section below. And if you did like this video, remember thumbs up, share it, and of course hit that subscribe button for more great videos like this one. I'll talk to y'all soon. Later. Peace.